Welcome to the Penny Z Show, where you get to learn how real people overcame real issues. Get ready to take notes and, most importantly, take action. Here's your host, Penny Z.
Welcome to the Penny Z Show. This is Penny Zellenkoff, or otherwise known as Penny Z, where we are focusing on transforming lives one life at a time. We're here to help you live your best life with topics that are real, relevant, and relatable. As many of you know, listening to our series, we are in a series called I'm Not Enough, I'm Not Good Enough, I'm Not Less Than. And if any of you have listened to my story, or many of you have listened to my story, you'll know that my story started way back when I was a child and really discovered that I was not good enough for many, many years of my life. But that doesn't necessarily happen to everyone. Sometimes for those of us, it might just be a situation that made us feel less than or not good enough. Others, it might be a season in our life, like I like to call that. Or perhaps there may be experiences out there where you have felt not enough for many years of your life. So I am very excited to start another show with all of my listeners today and have a very, very special guest on today. Please welcome with me Cheryl Grayson. She has got an impressive bio and just an incredible story that I'm really excited to share with you. Just to give you a little background on Cheryl, Cheryl is currently an executive coach. She focuses on diversity and inclusion. She works with strategic planning, leadership development, talent planning, group facilitation, also designs custom workshops. Cheryl has over 30 years of experience as a leader and educator in industries which include healthcare, pharmaceuticals, medical device, entertainment, and insurance. Cheryl, welcome to the Penny Z Show.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here today.
Oh, it's great to have you. Is there anything else that, obviously you know the most about yourself and your bio and your history. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we get into your story, Cheryl?
I guess the only other thing that I might add is that despite all of those things that you talked about from a professional standpoint that comprise who I am also a mom, and I've been married a couple times. And I am not currently married, but I'm very close to my children and people that are, friends from past lives, so to speak. And I honestly do believe that in addition to the professional roles that I've had, those experiences, being a mom, being a wife, being a friend, being a sister, those are experiences that really, truly I've, used and learned from that also contribute to the work that I do.
Absolutely, yeah. I appreciate you sharing that because really what I'm finding, not only in my own personal growth, but in many wonderful people that I get a chance to have conversations with and hear their backstories, is it really starts with getting our head straight and working on our personal development and the friendships that we make and personal growth and being able to live our best lives. And by doing that, we actually find that our professional life prospers.
Right.
So I appreciate that you mentioned that. Cheryl, we're just going to get right into it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your backstory and a little bit about a time or experience that you've had that made you feel a little bit less than or not enough, and we're going to kind of walk through that with our listeners.
Sure. And as mentioned to you real quickly, I'm going to go back because it would be impossible for me to have this conversation with you and your listeners without sharing what I believe, is my walk through life, which has a lot to do with the package that I'm in. From a gender perspective, obviously female, but from a race perspective, I'm African American. And the African American experience is one of not being enough. It still is. So for me, trying to separate out the experiences that I had, the feelings that I've had that made me feel like I wasn't enough, it's really been my whole life that has been superimposed on me just when I show up, just when I step in a room, just when I, get started with any, introductory type role that I have with anyone, anywhere. And for me, the first one that I can recall, if I had to discern it, it really goes back to growing up in Ohio, a very small town on Lake Erie, and in that town and during the time that I was growing up, maybe a little bit like it is now, people were emboldened to just say and be the way they wanted to across these racial differences. And I recall specifically a white male who owned a little store that I had just purchased a comic book and some candy in, who I was waiting, for my friend to make her purchase so that we could leave. He actually, after I made my purchase, he came around from the other side of the counter, and he actually put his face about 2 inches from mine, and I was about 5 at the time, and he said the N-word, and he told me to get out of his store, wait outside. And that was such a disconnect for me, first of all, as a 5-year-old, and it was traumatizing from the standpoint that I had no idea what he was talking about. Why would he go from, so to speak, Jekyll to Hyde? And I didn't understand that. And it stuck with me long enough through that day so that later when my mom got home from work, I asked her about it, and I just said, why did he do that? I don't even know what he meant. I don't understand what he was talking about. Why did he treat me that way? And my mother was a woman of very few words, and she was very busy because she ran the household and worked, and she was a single mom. And I remember her words to me were, Cheryl, you just have to understand that some white people don't like colored people. That was, in her mind, that covered it. Enough said, and I didn't understand that. But because of the way my mind works, maybe just my DNA, I knew that I didn't understand it, and I would tuck it away to try to understand it later. Maybe I needed to understand it when I was older. That's how I felt at the time. And I've had many, many, many opportunities to, experience a very similar dynamic in my life. And each time that my mom's little adage, if you will, came back to me. So saying that all to say, I've felt this way my whole life, not being good enough, but I've also felt that it was imposed on me. It's not what I was made of. It's not how I felt about me. It's how others felt about me. And I've always been a person to strive to try to understand the lesson in whatever that traumatic moment was that I felt that way. And in so doing, lucky for me, I tend to be a person who I don't blame people for their ignorance. I don't blame them for their bigotry. I don't blame them for falling short as human beings. I really truly try to understand where that's coming from so that I can separate it from me. I don't take it in personally. I see it as their issue, not my issue. And as such, I think I've been able to protect myself from succumbing to feelings that I'm not good enough. And that actually is the bedrock of what I've been able to do in my life, is not take it in, not believe it. And by not believing it, not giving it energy, continuing in what I do believe about myself, what I do think I'm capable of, such like that. So
Cheryl, can you explain to me a little bit? And I completely understand. And in this crazy world we all live in, the word that keeps coming into mind is just acceptance, love. We all are human beings, really. It doesn't matter what color or race or gender or social status. We really put our pants on one leg at a time, or our skirts on the same way, and brush our hair and do normal day-to-day things. What for you, how do you process that? You said that you're able to separate it somewhat. You use the word protect yourself and not take it in. What does that look like for you? Explain that to me so that I understand from your perspective what that looks like, and what action or thoughts does that mean for you in your day-to-day and week-to-week life?
Yeah, so for me, day-to-day, week-to-week, and, it really translates to a couple of things. First and foremost, every day I try to be grateful for something. I start out that day just thankful that, listen, I put my feet on the floor, I didn't die in the night, I didn't, just whatever it is that I'm grateful for, I start the day with that. I also, truly, this is, I kind of take some of my lessons from, nature. I look at the way dogs and cats, I've always had dogs in my life, how they start their day. They kind of stretch and yawn, and I literally prepare myself for whatever the day's gauntlet is going to be. And it's usually not a very, there's not a lot of, firecrackers and fireworks going off. It's not like there's some, exciting life that I have. It really boils down to preparing myself for whatever is coming, girding myself, strengthening myself. Now, maybe this comes from being a black woman in America. I don't know. But I do know that is what I have to do. I have to kind of get up and get myself ready for it. The other part for me is with that gratitude that I have for my health, for the fact that, my children grew up to be wonderful human beings. And by that, I don't mean that they're rich or anything. I mean they're good people. I literally think of those things. I think about signs that I see throughout the day that there are good people in the world. I literally make sure that I greet people with a smile and pleasantness and allow that day to start in a positive way for me so that by the time whatever it is that is a negative, which is inevitable, comes onto my path, I've built up so much positive energy. It's sort of my force field. It's the way that I am able to look at that, step back from it, and say, you know what? I didn't create that. I didn't try to make that happen. I didn't, whatever you fill in the blank, I didn't seek that out. It fell on my path. Now, there may be some things that, from my perspective, this is a universe, and the universe has a way of giving you what you need to grow and learn. There may be some things that I need to do with that situation. Sometimes I think of it as this person or this situation came on my path because this person needed to meet me today and for me to have an impact on them. And in so doing, they have an impact on me. So sometimes I will take the time to try to understand, why is this person this way? Why is this person approaching the situation that way? But for the most part, I try to extract some learning from whatever that encounter is. So it starts out with just being grateful for the day and then getting myself through that graciousness and gratitude, ready for what's coming to me that day, and then heading out feeling strengthened by that so that when I encounter those things, I am not already, at a hair trigger point where I'm just ready to pounce on someone. I'm actually able to size up the situation and figure out, what lesson is there in this for me, and what can I possibly help this person understand. And a lot of times, Penny, what I find is, it may sound funny, but I feel as though it was important for that person who was evil, angry, bigoted, whatever, to come across me so that they have an example of somebody who's not like whatever that stereotype, that issue is in their mind. That may be all there was to that. And I'm able to move on and let it go. And that's truly how I go through my day.
That's amazing. I love that. It gives me goosebumps. It's empowering. It provides you the choice on how you're going to respond. It gives you tools every day to wake up. I know that, we haven't known each other for a very long time, but when we reached out to each other and we shared that initial conversation, we had a kindred spirit, and I do believe that the universe and for me, God has brought us together because I do very similar things that you have just mentioned in my day as well. I have a gratitude journal that I write things that I'm grateful for, and I'll be real honest, when I first started this over a year ago, the things I were grateful for were I have a roof over my head, I have food in my belly, and I have my health. And it was a hard process, but day after day you start seeing signs about things to be grateful for. And then you stop focusing on yourself and you start focusing on other people in your life that you're grateful for that day. And then you start trying to live that way during, at least I don't know if you've experienced this, I try to live my day finding things that I'm proud of and grateful for to be able to add to my grateful journal, you know.
Right.
So you
Right.
become a better person. You know,
Right.
I say that when you think better, you do better. And
Yep.
and you have just outlined it perfectly with, you know, being grateful. I love the reference to dogs and cats because so many of us are animal lovers, and I too own dogs, and people have seen them on my website, Max and Addie, and I like to observe them. And then you're right, preparing yourself in the day, whether it's doing meditation or prayer or quiet time, and maybe you can share a little bit of what that looks like for you. For me, it's both meditation and quiet time. You prepare yourself for the day to be in the right frame of mind so that when a bump or when something negative or a bad situation comes into your life, you handle it differently than you did in the past. In the past, you might blow up. In the past, you might attack. You might get mad. And now you look at it as a real teachable moment, as I think maybe Miss Oprah Winfrey might say, who I highly respect and absolutely would love to meet her someday, but she's got a lot of great sayings. I feel like you do that in your life, and I'm so grateful that you're on today and sharing your story, because this is very empowering.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. For me, it's like I started out, saying, it's how I'm wired, and I never really thought about it before. So I am like this fish that you kind of netted and pulled out of the water, and you're asking, so how come that water doesn't drown you? How is it you're able to swim? And I've never really thought about it before. So I'm just now kind of putting some tenets around it, but in introspecting and examining it, I realize the power, and I mean this not in a cliche way, but the empowering, I guess is a better way of saying it, the empowering nature of staying positive, being grateful. And when I say that, Penny, I mean, I'm even, I know that it sounds a little Pollyannish, but I'm just going to go there anyway. For me, I have things that happen, like I'll give an example. I was supposed to be 5 hours away, like in the Key Biscayne area, okay? And I live in the Clearwater area. So 5 hours away from where I am, I was supposed to be for a dinner so that the next morning I could teach a session. And I go to start my car, and the car will not start. And I'm telling you, I was like, I literally had 30 minutes to make another, a plan B. And so in that 30 minutes, I decided, okay, real quick, this is what you can do. You can, because failure is not an option. You're not going to call them and say you're not going to show up. So you are literally going to figure out how to do this. And there was no one around at the time who could help me. It's not like I wouldn't have asked for it. There was just no one available. So I quickly, called, found the most local car, rental place, was able to, get a car, economy kind of car, get it, pack it, go. And within, I was only off by maybe 30 minutes of when I really wanted to be able to leave so I could be on time for what I wanted to do. Now, once I got in that car, I know that there was this fork in the proverbial road that I could have started saying, oh, my God, I can't believe it, woe is me. But I can now look back at that and give an example of what I did do that is representative of just how I'm wired, who I am. I was in the car and I'm driving, and I thought, wow, so let's think about this. What did you learn from that? One, I did need a backup plan, because I do live alone and I do have these things that could come up. Two, though, how fortunate you are that you had the money, you had the wherewithal to be able to rent another vehicle in an emergency like that. Three, how lucky were you that the car didn't take you even down the street? It literally would not start. It would not take you anywhere away from familiar surroundings. So you had to leave it there and get a more reliable vehicle to get you where you need to go, because it's better for that car to be parked than for it to stall on you on the way to Key Biscayne, Florida from Clearwater. So when I tell you that this is just a natural, though I think, it's something that people can learn to do, think about what do you appreciate about this situation? If you start with that. Now, the reason I say that is because it's absolutely what I do with my now grown kids. When they were growing up, I would always, whenever something, some adversity would face them, I would just listen. We would talk through whatever it was, but then I would always say to them, so what did you take from that? What lesson is that there in that for you? And there were times when they would say, geez, Ma, I don't know. I can't imagine what the lesson of that is, But I really didn't care if they could put their finger on the lesson. I really wanted to build the muscle memory of thinking that way, thinking there's always something good in what you encounter. As long as you're still drawing breath, there's good stuff going on. So what is it? What's good about it? So that's kind of like,
absolutely.
That's what happens.
Yeah, no, I love that story as well. I mean, because, you could have given up. You could have, like you said, called the people and said, I'm not coming. You could have played a victim role, like poor woe is me, bad things happen to me, and it's everybody else's fault, or it's the car's fault, or the universe's fault.
Right.
But you didn't. You had a positive attitude. You empowered yourself. You gave yourself, choices on how to resolve a problem, being a problem solver. And then once you went through that experience, you looked back at the experience to realize, what could I learn from it? What could I be appreciative of? And I still get to have the wonderful experience I had planned. It's just slightly different than what I had originally planned. I'm not in my car, but I am in another car getting me where I need to be. Gosh, I love that. That's a great story.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
it's
a great
funny
story.
Too, because when I'm, I think that is, if I had to put my finger on the nature of my friendships, and probably what my grown kids call me for nowadays, it's not about money. It's not about things like, problems with friends. It's really more just sounding board, because I think that's probably what they value, my friends and my family, is that is my perspective, and I help them think about when it's almost, too difficult for them to think about it. I help them find the good in a situation, or what's growthful in it for them, or what can they use. Because I think a lot of people, when you're down, when you're depressed, when you feel as though more or less the world is against you, you're just not gonna be able to prevail. It's really hard to. I don't know if you guys remember this. I'm probably dating myself a lot, but MacGyver was this character who, he could have a ballpoint pen and a bracelet and somehow make some form of a, escape type tool to get out of a bad situation. And MacGyver became sort of, the code word for just being able to use whatever you have in order to do what you need to do, to free yourself, to help yourself, to achieve a goal, what have you. And I tell you, I get inspiration from all kind of things around me. This one kid he's no longer alive. He was 12 when he passed away, but he was born with HIV. And it's very easy to pity people like that. And this kid ended up, in the 12 years that he was living, he ended up being this world-renowned speaker. And one of the things he was asked, is not like this was his original quote. I think it's really attributed to Teddy Roosevelt, but it's obviously words that he lived by. He was asked, by people, how do you do it? You go around, you speak to people, and you give them awareness of HIV, AIDS, and that those people aren't, are lepers of the world. And he said, what I do, I tell other people to do, which is do what you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. And that literally that's just how I live my life. I base it on what's possible, and trying to sort of MacGyver the situation. Like, what can I use? It may not be the original tool that I had planned, but what else do I have that's available to me? Because there's a lot of things around me that help me get through day by day.
Yeah. I just want to thank you. I'm just feeling grateful just listening to you and knowing you and understand how your family and friends and people around you want to talk to you and want your perspective. It's very powerful, and I'm grateful. I know when I get a chance to talk to you, and I think that's what we're trying to give through the Penny Z show is what you just said, empowering people to live their best lives in where they're at, how they're at, the place that they're at, doing what they're doing, to be happy, to be healthy, to live with joy and peace, love, and abundance, if we all had that same mindset, what a incredible world this would be. And I know that there are people that struggle out there, but at least through the Penny Z Show and through guests like yourself and these types of conversations, hopefully we'll be able to make, a greater impact on as many people's lives as we most absolutely possibly can. Cheryl, I want to thank you, but in wrapping up, I feel like you've overcome your not enough feeling, though I think the universe has you have to deal with it, maybe more on a regular basis than we would like it to be and in different circumstances. Is there anything else kind of in closing that you would like to share to our listeners, lessons that you've learned, or any suggestions on things that you would like to share in closing?
Yeah, I guess the final thing that I would say is, I know that most of what we do is, being primates ourselves is just about getting through each day, surviving, and thinking about the next day, trying to be prepared and able to deal with the next day. And I think for me, one last thing I would say in parting is recognize that there's a purpose that you serve, that there's very likely a reason that you are encountering what you're encountering and feeling what you're feeling, and be willing to look inside and figure out, how can I use what I have within me, around me, to push through this, and don't stop there. Really, how do I pay that forward? Because I really do believe things do come back to you. If nothing else, when you feel down, and this is another thing that I tell my kids, when you're down and out, when you feel that way, do something for somebody else. Because when you go out to do something for somebody else, you feel so good. And you also realize things can be a lot worse. When you're able to find somebody who's worse off than you, that makes you feel better. It really, truly does. So, honestly, when that's another very important aspect of kind of helping yourself not feel worthy, not feeling good enough, is going out and disproving that by doing something for somebody else and realizing, boy, you are worthy, and there are people who appreciate you. So to me, that's just a very powerful way of just living your life.
Absolutely. It's the pay it forward. It's, doing something special for a stranger for the day. There's a lot of different ways of saying that. But again, Cheryl, I would like to just, really thank you for your wisdom, for your life, for what you're doing in the world, for being on the show and helping me and sharing your story and helping our listeners. For those of you who are interested in listening to this podcast with Cheryl Grayson, obviously it'll be able to access us on our website, through YouTube, through Twitter, through LinkedIn, as well as our Facebook page. Like us, follow us. We'd like you to pass it forward. I'm going to give you, our listeners, 2 challenges. Number 1, please forward the Penny Z Show to as many of your friends, family, Facebook posts, coworkers, so that we can, my goal is to affect 1 million lives, to make 1 million lives better in this world, and so help me help you on our journey. But I also wanted to challenge you in leaving this with what Cheryl said. I'd like all of our listeners to go out and do something special for someone today, and we'd love to hear it. Tell us your story. Share your story on the Penny Z Show. Give us your comments. Share it on Facebook. Take a picture. Take a video. I would love to challenge all of you when you listen to this podcast at whatever time in your life and day that you happen to stumble on my wonderful podcast with my fantastic guests, that I want to challenge you to go out and do something special for someone else today, and then tell us about it. Share it on the Penny Z Show. If you guys would like to learn more about Cheryl, she will be on our website. We will have a link to contact Cheryl Grayson. Again, this has been a fantastic interview with a most wonderful guest on the Penny Z Show. We just hope you have a wonderful and a fantastic day. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much for listening. If you want to hear more, including specific ways to empower yourself, go to thepennyzshow.com.